Welcome to this Headless Professor video about the hypothesis and its role in science. The plural of the word hypothesis is hypotheses. One hypothesis or several hypotheses. Let's start with a definition. The one you probably heard in the 8th grade won't work in this class. A hypothesis should not be regarded as an educated guess. The official definition we're going to use is a hypothesis is a prediction. A prediction generated from a theory, and it is to be tested by future scientific data. The hypothesis has an essential role in science. We advance the hypothesis before we do our empirical measurement, and then we use the resulting data to test that hypothesis. Now, we said that hypothesis is frequently generated from a scientific theory. Let's suppose that our theory is that depression is caused by social isolation. Let's think of some testable hypotheses and the designs that might be used to test those hypotheses. For example, suppose we have a sample versus norm design. The hypothesis might be this sample of socially isolated persons will have higher scores on the Center for Epidemiological Studies Depression test. In other words, higher than the norm, higher than the average score for adults on this particular test. Suppose we had a separate groups design. We might test the hypothesis like this. The socially isolated group will have higher scores on the CESD compared to a group of non-isolated persons. If you had a repeated measures design, you might test the hypothesis like this. This sample will report higher scores on the CESD after being assigned to socially isolated conditions. In other words, we would measure the same sample before and after being assigned to socially isolated conditions and see if their depression scores increase. Most of the hypotheses that you will be working with will be of the correlational variety. You will measure two different variables and you will hypothesize whether they are going to be related with a positive or negative correlation. Here is an example corresponding to our theory to be tested. There will be a positive correlation between scores on the CESD and scores on a test measuring social isolation. Let me give you some further hints about developing a hypothesis. Hypothesize a difference between groups or between measures or between sample and norms. Do not hypothesize the absence of difference. We have a specific name for the absence of difference. It's called the null hypothesis. That's what we're going to try to argue against. So hypothesize that a difference does exist. If you're using a correlational design, hypothesize that a correlation exists, not that an absence of correlation is there. Once again, that would be the null hypothesis. Science is all about testing hypotheses empirically. Your hypothesis must be customized to your particular data and your specific research design. If the three of these, design, data, and hypothesis, don't match, you have to change one or more of these. You either have to change how you measure the variable, You have to change your research design, or you have to change your hypothesis. That's what a hypothesis is, a statement of what's going to happen, and it has an essential role in science.